In mission together we all join our hands. In mission together throughout many lands. With our hearts united, our voices we raise. To God our Creator in glorious praise.
Hi, you're watching Reflections. Reflections is a TV show provided to you by Paducah Cooperative Ministry. It highlights the ministries and the mission of PCM and what PCM does in our community. If you're not aware, Paducah Cooperative Ministry is a local help agency that reaches out to those in our community who might need a little extra help when life becomes difficult. My name is Jay Gottman. I'm the lead minister at First Christian Church, and I am excited today to have with me and to introduce to you the Reverend Kempton Baldridge, who is one of the chaplains on the Ohio River region for the Seamen's Church Institute of New Jersey and New York. One of the things that we do here at Reflections is from time to time we like to invite you to get to know some new clergy who are in our community. And Kempton has been in Paducah now for about 7 months, and we're glad that he had time to come off the river and to join us and to share some of his life and his experiences with us. So Kempton, I want to say welcome to you and would like to ask you to share where you're from and a little bit about your calling and what brought you to Paducah, Kentucky.
Well, thank you, Jay. And you're right, it's a lot warmer in here in the studio than it is out on the river. So once I get my hands warmed up, I'll head back out there. Actually, I think my story starts actually not too far from here. I was born in Cincinnati, Ohio, or as I used to tell people, across the river from Newport, Kentucky. And that tends to keep me out of trouble with folks from the Great South. But I grew up in New England, and I was educated there. I left and attended college at the Citadel in Charleston, South Carolina, where it was helpful, particularly as a freshman, to identify myself as being born across the river from Newport, Kentucky. And after the Citadel, I went into the world of university development and fundraising, that sort of thing, public relations. And towards the end of my 20s, I had experienced a number of successes and failures, both personal and professional, and began an assessment with the help of some local clergy who encouraged me to be thinking about not only my vocation, but my vocation, capital V, as in whether or not I had a calling. And coincident to that, I met my wife, Isabel, who encouraged me to pursue that, and I ended up in effect living the dream. I had never really achieved very much academic success, and so the parting of the Red Sea is listed as a miracle. Most traditions regard that, but I think getting me not only into seminary and out of seminary was indeed one of God's most greatest miracles of the 20th century. So following seminary, I was graduated and began parish ministry in South Carolina, first in a rural church in Orangeburg, South Carolina, then to a more lively community, Hilton Head Island, South Carolina, and midway through my tenure there, I received an all-expense-paid tour of the Middle East courtesy of the government, also known as Desert Storm. So I was recalled to active duty and spent 3 tours in the Middle East, and that was certainly a pivotal event in my life and in my ministry. In the meantime, I'd become a father of two wonderful children. After the war, I was injured getting ready to go on mission to Bosnia. And after my recovery, I was given the choice to be either medically retired or to leave active duty and to rehabilitate in the reserve. And so I did that and became a university chaplain at the University of Delaware, which I did for 6.5 years. I was retired from the Navy Reserve as a Navy chaplain after doing a reserve tour with the Marines, which was fantastic, getting to go on NATO exercises in the Arctic Circle and in Norway, and going out to the middle of the desert and doing ministry in 135-degree temperatures. But after I was retired from the Navy, it freed up more of my time to consider other possibilities. And my experiences with NATO in Europe informed me that there were some adventures, some opportunities to explore that I had not. And long story short, I became aware of the opportunity to pursue parish ministry in Europe. And I applied. I was one of many applicants, I'm sure. And God, in His infinite wisdom, saw fit to have me bubble to the surface of that pot. And they were kind enough to give me the shot. And so for 11 years, I was the rector of All Saints Episcopal Church in Waterloo, Belgium, which is a suburb of Brussels. And that was a very eventful time, not only for our family, but certainly for the world. Shortly after we arrived, of course, were the attacks of September 11th, and I was the only Navy chaplain in Northern Europe at the time, reserve, active or retired. And so I found myself back backfilling at NATO, and was actually even honored to serve as the chaplain for the September 11th observances at NATO headquarters, and also did a fair amount of counseling and crisis ministry at not only at my church but also at NATO headquarters there in Brussels. So we did that for 11 years. In the process, we we moved the church and acquired a new church on the battleground at battlefield at Waterloo, which was an overwhelming and ultimately gratifying enterprise. And when I began to start thinking about what the future might hold, I was certainly aware of my children heading back to the United States for college, and of my parents getting older, as they do. I realized that it was time to start thinking about opportunities in the United States, and to become reacquainted with family. And so my bishop asked me, what is it that I would really like to do? This was about 3-4 years ago. And I told him I'd really like to become a chaplain for Seaman's Church. And he shook his head and said, oh gosh, I'm so sorry. He said, somebody either has to die or retire for one of those positions to become open. He said, he said, I really can't help you there. He said, there are so few of them, and he said, those are such choice positions. And so like Mary in the Bible, I sort of kept my own counsel and guarded these things in my heart and didn't really tell anybody because, of course, this was a sort of a ridiculous thing. But it was a year ago this month that I first saw the advertisement for the chaplain for the Ohio River region. And light bulbs went off in my head and said, my gosh, I was born in Ohio. So for the first time in my life, I put my birthplace actually right there at the top of my resume in the application, And maybe that was it. I don't know. Maybe that was it was the first question that I was asked during the phone interviews. Oh, so you're from Ohio? Well, sort of.
Now, growing up, had you known about Seaman's Church Institute, or just in your world travels you knew about that ministry?
Well, a little of both. But my father actually was is a former merchant marine officer. My father sailed. He was a graduate of in the first class, graduating class at Kings Point Merchant Marine Academy, and. So I had an awareness of the merchant marine and the work that Seaman's Church does with mariners all over the world, but in particular the New York metropolitan area where I grew up. And so I was aware not only of the work, but also the esteem in which Seaman's Church is held. What I did not realize was that 12 years ago, now actually 13 years ago, Seaman's Church decided to branch out, if you will, and to recognize the very valuable, in fact, the essential contributions of the brown water merchant marine, the 2,200 miles of inland waterways, and established first one chaplaincy, and then expanded the chaplaincy with two full-time positions, one on the Ohio and the upper Mississippi, and another on the lower Mississippi. And so I was not aware that there was such a thing as a river chaplain, but the very fact that it existed and the very fact that it was connected with Seaman's Church certainly quickened my pulse. And I didn't know what a river chaplain was, but I knew it was something I wanted to try to learn how to do. And that's pretty much the way I approach every day for the past seven months. I don't know what a river chaplain is, but I'm going to try to figure it out.
Yeah.
And
So you
learn how to be
combined
one.
your love of being on boats, and then taking a congregation that's basically a floating congregation that's always changing and shifting, and
Exactly.
you brought those two together.
Right.
I'd be interested to know how the dynamics are between a congregation that has a physical place versus those congregants who are on a barge and who are on the river,
Right,
and some
right.
of those differences.
Well, I guess the best analogy, Jay, would be if your congregation, I mean, you probably have a sense of how many households you have in your congregation.
Sure.
My congregation at present has roughly 3,500 households, except that they're not in Winnebagos. They're in floating Winnebagos.
Sure.
So if you can imagine, they're spread across 2,200 miles. There are somewhere between 3,000 and 3,500 towboats, working boats, dredges, buoy tenders, floating up and down the rivers. And just as at First Christian Church, you don't see everybody every Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes the only way you're going to get to see them is to go out and to make a call. But that doesn't mean, just because you don't see them, doesn't mean you don't care about them, and it doesn't mean that you have no responsibility for them. It just means that it's more difficult to express your ministry, and the exercise of ministry is different. It's certainly no less valid. And the fact that they're moving targets certainly provides logistical and communications challenges, but we're using the technology to our advantage. And so, for example, we now have websites, and we have a Facebook page, and we have blogs, and my BlackBerry is with me at all times, and I'm surprised by the numbers of mariners with whom I have contact who want to check in with me on everything from recovery from substance abuse to what advice they would have for somebody who is looking to get married and or help with parenting, those sorts of things. It's a wonderfully diverse group, far more diverse than I think most people would realize. They are a remarkably faithful group in their own way. I've been truly impressed by the the degree of moral and spiritual leadership that I've seen by some of the towboat captains and pilots and mates, and a fair degree of parenting that they exercise. So in many ways, it is analogous to a floating household. And so my challenge is to try and use my physical presence where appropriate, and most often I'll be responding to crises on the river, and with 60,000 professional mariners, you would guess, just like, as with any sector of the population, there are going to be crises, whether some involving maritime accidents, but oftentimes due to disease or illness or marital breakup, that sort of thing. And so I will often go running, as you do. I will run to the occasion of stress or mishap. If there's an accident on the river, invariably I'm gone and on my way within 30 minutes. If there are things that happen ashore, such as a miscarriage or a death in the family, I will often go and serve as a surrogate and to go to the hospital and to visit the family when the towboater can't get off the boat, and many times that's the case. At Christmas and Easter, of course, we do our best to make sure that what is another work day for them is not simply another day, and to remind them that they are very much loved and cared for and remembered. And so it's a challenge. I wish I could say I was a great river chaplain. No, I took over from a great river chaplain, Jim Wilkinson, who is the prototype, and he was the granddaddy of river chaplains. And of course, Ann Mills did a wonderful ministry based here out of Paducah, knitting together the networks of families and the churches with their towboaters. So I've got two wonderful examples of what river ministry can be about, but over time I've got to put my own skill set to work, and also recognizing too that as Mark Twain would certainly echo, the river's a dynamic place. It changes all the time, and so therefore I have to be flexible and recognize that the issues, the opportunities, and the imperatives are changing, and so I have to be attuned to those things.
Sure. Well, and your region, the Ohio River region, is a huge area.
Truly.
And so, how far do you minister? What communities? What's your northernmost to southernmost region?
I think I would probably stop in the Canadian provinces, but no, I actually minister literally as far east as Pittsburgh, and I visited boats up at the junction of the Monongahela and it's a Monongahela up there in Pittsburgh. And I certainly have traveled on the Kanawha River in West Virginia, so I'm getting more familiar with the eastern region. Coming down the Ohio, of course, the Ohio and its tributaries, which would include, of course, the Green River, the Tennessee River, the Cumberland Rivers, the Illinois River. I have yet to get on, and I'm not going to get on while it's in the winter, but as soon as the ice clears, I hope to be up there. So go all the way up to Chicago. The Upper Mississippi. In fact, we're already making plans now for getting underway on the Mississippi, on the Upper Mississippi, and I'd like to go. I'm responsible as far north as St. Paul, certainly down on through Iowa and into down to St. Louis. And my responsibilities go as far south on the Mississippi as somewhere between Memphis and Vicksburg. Right now I'm actually covering the lower Mississippi from a pastoral crisis standpoint, because they are choosing a new, and in fact, even this week they're actually interviewing candidates to become the new chaplain for the lower Mississippi. So right now, if it's on the western rivers, it's my responsibility.
So how much time do you actually end up spending on a boat each month and traveling with the men and women who do this wonderful work for us?
My job description says 60%, 3 days out of 5. Some weeks it's 7 days out of 7. And those are usually good weeks. I love those. Other weeks, due to circumstances, it may be 0 for 7, or when the needful tasks of Christmas on the river, for example, or other administrative demands keep me hovering over a computer or working, doing other needful tasks. I won't be out on the river, and those are not always my best weeks, shall we say. And so I've come to learn that the best way to improve a day at the office if I'm not on the river is to very intentionally head down to one of the many shipyards that we have here in Paducah. Fortunately, I've got unlimited access that, of course, that comes with the position. And to spend time with the towboat crews, because, of course, they're going stir crazy in the shipyard. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, they'd much rather be out on the river themselves. And so to be able to come and break bread with the towboaters, and to bring them books or DVDs to be able to listen to what's on their mind, or to watch a ball game with them, stopping in and visiting with them. It lets them know that they are connected to another world. And having spent a fair amount of time not only at sea but on the rivers, I can tell you that yes, you're on planet Earth, but you are in a parallel universe, one that often seems unconnected to the world that you've left behind. And when one is out on the river, when you're underway, you can feel, even though with a Bluetooth, you can be in constant communication with a wife or a daughter or whomever, there's also this sense that you're in another place. Mm-hmm. And so to serve as the bridge, the liaison between this very special place, the river, mm-hmm. And that other very special place, home, family, loved ones, that's just an extraordinary honor.
Sure. So what would you say is the most rewarding part of your ministry with Seamen's Church Institute?
I have to choose my words carefully. I'd say it's what you and I would know as clergy as the dreadful privilege to be with other people on what is the worst day of their lives, perhaps, mm-hmm. and to humbly, faithfully, and hopefully, mm-hmm. and I don't, in other words, being filled with hope, trusting in God's grace to, in some small way, help to make that unbearable moment more bearable. Mm-hmm. To be with a towboat crew within hours of the death of one of their shipmates. Mm-hmm. It's at one level, it is. It's nothing I look forward to. Mm-hmm. Please don't get me wrong, but it is something that I think God has given me the opportunity, certainly, and mm-hmm. and I hope the spiritual gifts mm-hmm. to be able to make a difference in those situations, and those days when I'm able to to do the work that I believe God called me to do. It can be exhausting, but it's so incredibly affirming. I feel that I can look up at the stars and just say, thank you, God, for putting me here.
It seems like your whole calling that God has placed upon your life to this point has been, whether in military service or in Europe with the congregation for 11 years, it seems like you have had opportunities to be with folks definitely in crisis mode, and perhaps even your calling is obviously a gift in a very humbling way to be with people in some of the most difficult of circumstances, and to bless them and let them know that God cares for them and is with them in those very trying moments. And that's not always everyone's calling. And so it seems like that's been a real blessing that God has seemed to put you in those situations.
Absolutely. And it's nothing you look forward to. And God willing, you do everything you can to Lord knows I'm not an ambulance chaser, but you wouldn't, some of these days, you wouldn't wish on your worst enemy, but at the same time, to be able to be with someone and walk with someone in dark hours when they've lost all sense that there is a God, when they may have forgotten why it is they want to even get up in the morning, when they've lost hope, and to somehow give them some small kernel of reason to have hope.
Right.
That's a you can put your head on the pillow and say, okay, I've done what I can do today. Thank you, God.
Sure, which is a huge challenge with 3,500 families who are constantly on the move.
60,000 families.
60,000 families.
Right.
Yeah. And so, you've got just this enormous task ahead of you. And so being able to, balance all of that is an ongoing challenge.
Right. Well, and actually, you bring up an interesting point, because it actually, at one level, it is 3,500 families, because, in fact, the towboat crew will tell you that, we spend more time with each other than we do with our own families.
Sure.
And so they become like a riverborne family, and with the same sorts of dynamism, the same sort of tensions and joys and sorrows and all of that. And it's a sort of family or tribe about which the family back home really doesn't know and sometimes doesn't appreciate.
Sure, and you can help to mediate that. And this is fascinating, and our time is coming to a close already. I do want to thank all of you for watching our show Reflections today. This is a TV program sponsored by Paducah Cooperative Ministry and the fine folks here at Paducah Channel 2. We pray that you will continue to keep Paducah Cooperative Ministry in your prayers and support us as best you can, where our ministry and our motto is to do God's work with human hands. My name is Jay Gottman at First Christian Church. Thank you for tuning in, and if you'd like to know more about Paducah Cooperative Ministry and its mission and the various ministries that are offered and even ways that you can help out, you can always go to paducahcoopministry.org for more information. And if you'd like to check out this show or other programs of Reflections, you can always go to the Paducah Cooperative Ministry website, and there is a link there, or you can go to Paducah Channel 2 and find us there. Thank you for being with us, and thank you for your support.
In mission.